Hi everyone. Today we are working on my 1969 Chevy C30 truck. You may have seen this truck in a few of my other videos on the channel, specifically the National Pike Steam Show videos. And today we're going to fix some wiring problems caused by some furry friends. These friends are going to be served an eviction notice, followed by a relocation of their mouse house because they have not paid sufficient rent. And then we're going to go ahead and fix the wiring. And here's the problem. Yeah, great. Dang mice again. What's the saying? I hate meeces to pieces. Yes. Now in this truck, it's a metal roof, no headliner. Took the sun visors off. I accessed my wires here and don't mind them. I'm going to rewire all this. This is junk. So that'll all be rewired when I'm done, and it'll be done much nicer. Once you take these sun visors off, there's a hole here, and then there's a hole on the other side of the cab, and you can access the space between the metal roof here and the top of the roof. And there's about a 1-inch gap. It varies, maybe between 3/4 of an inch to maybe 1.5 inches. But I'm gonna make an adapter for the shop vac. We can stuff a hose up in there and suck all the junk out. All right, so what I have here is one of these Harbor Freight fluid transfer pumps, but we don't need that. I'll set that aside. What we do need though is a hose that goes with it. It's about I don't know, 3/8, maybe a little bigger than 3/8. Very flexible rubber hose. So all I did here was just take the shop vac reducer fitting, crevice tool, and stuffed a rag in it, in the end of it, and stuff this hose in there. Another thing you might want to do is just try to leave a little bit of an air gap in there so your shop vac can breathe. Keep in mind, this is very, very stressful to the shop vac. You're really restricting the suction down to this, to this small hose. So only run the shop vac for short periods of time. Pop this off every once in a while and let it breathe some air, full blast of air to help cool it. My particular shop vac has a double insulated motor, so it actually has its own fan for the motor. It's actually a pretty good old, probably about 25 years old Craftsman shop vac. So yeah, here's the shop vac from the good old days. You can see these vents right there are the ones that allow the motor to breathe. So I just keep an eye on the heat coming out of there, and if I feel like it's getting too warm, I'll shut it down and let it cool down. Like I said, this is very restrictive, but it does work. Run it for 5 minutes, let it take a break. A couple minute break, and then run it again a little more. All right, we're all done. And look at all that junk that I got out of there. That's all mouse nest material, and it was all up inside my roof. Yeah, lovely, huh? So my idea for preventing mice from getting back up into the roof cavity is this. These Scotch-Brite stainless steel scouring pads. So my plan, if it works, is to just take a couple pieces of it, maybe even a bigger piece like this one, and stick it on the end of this grabber, one of these grabber tools, and we're just going to shove it up in there and try to work it over to where the A-pillar, this is the A-pillar here, there is a cavity in there. It's hollow all the way down to the under the dash. Actually, it's even behind the vent. There's a vent there, right there. I think that cavity actually goes into the hollow space back in there, and I think that's how mice are gaining access to that area. So the goal here is to block that cavity in here. It's hollow. They don't have a passageway to get up in here. Now I know they can go through the B pillar or whatever you want to call the other cab corner here, but I think that's a bit harder. Let's see how this works. I've never done this before. I think the mice are going to have a hard time chewing through this stuff. This is stainless steel, so I got a funny feeling that once I put this up in there, they're just going to leave this alone. So I'm going to have to find a way to really get that tucked down in there into the cavity there where the hole would be for that A-pillar. But I think you get the general idea. All right. Nice if I could just cut these wires and get them out of the way, but I'm afraid I'm going to need these wires to fish the new wires for the lights. So I really don't want to remove them or cut them. I put the camera up in there, but there's really not a whole lot to see in there. Yeah, I mean, I got it tucked down in there. Can't even see it. So these lights came with the wrong screws. So I had to silicone the screw heads so water did not intrude. So now I gotta pay the price for that decision and dig out the silicone before I can remove these screws. I certainly didn't spare the silicone on these, but you know, 15 years. These screws only rusted a little bit in that amount of time, so I think we did all right. But I will not make this mistake again. All right, let's see if we can get a screwdriver on that. The other dumb thing I did was I glued these down too, right here. Might have been because I wanted to seal this hole, and I think the silicone just kind of grabbed the seal with it. So, yeah. And we'll clean that up, move on to the next one here. See what's under door number 5. Yeah, pretty big blob of silicone here. All right. Well, we got to get all these cleaned up. I got to get new wires fished through there. I'll clean this silicone and old gasket material off and get ready to reinstall these lights. I'm keeping them. Just gonna reinstall them as is with new gaskets. This is just a piece of stripped copper wire, solid conductor. I'm just using it to fish this wire through the cab roof. Since this is one of the wires the mice chewed all the way through, I'm unable to use the old wire to pull the new wire. So I had to start over with fishing the copper wire through the roof. And I'm just pushing on this as I'm giving the wire a tug through the sun visor hole in the roof. Tie a quick knot in here, prevent me from pulling it all the way through. On my luck, I would. That's it. That's how you pull a wire through a cab roof. I just got to do that 3 more times because I think the mice chewed through 3 of the 5 wires. This is called dual wall shrink tubing. It has an inner glue type substance that when you heat it up, it kind of melts a bit and kind of helps seal the joint that you're trying to protect. And it also has the benefit of 3x shrinkage, which is going to be perfect for this type of joint because there's going to be a large amount of going to be a big bulge with combining 5 wires down to 1, and this will be able to shrink around the bulge and around the feed wire. So this is the new feed wire here, and these go to our 5 lights. Don't forget to put your shrink tubing on first. I've almost made that mistake many times. Alright. I'm just using solid copper wire here. I'm going to try to make this joint solid with this copper wire. It's probably one of the better techniques to use when you're combining a bunch of wires into one and you don't have a terminal block. You know, like in a chassis situation, you can use a terminal block, but up in a cab ceiling like this, you know, I just want to use just a joint, a solid joint. Alright, next step is to get some flux on there and get a torch up in there. Let's move this shrink tubing out of the way here, because this wire might get a little warm and I don't want it prematurely shrinking that tube. Okay, what we have here is rosin core flux. Of course, you do not use pipe flux or pipe solder, acid flux on electronic wiring. I know guys do it, but I don't recommend it. So we'll just get some of this flux. Since this is a large joint, you know, normally I use solder that has flux core, which is what I'm using today too, but this is a rather large joint, so I'm going to be liberal with this flux. Let's see if I can do this without burning the truck down. Isn't the best solder to use, it's too thin, but it's all I got right now. So I have to constantly feed it quicker. It's grabbing it. It's flowing. That's what you want. All right. Well, I'm pretty happy with this solder joint. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not going anywhere. There's enough solder in there to do the job. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alrighty, on to the next step. Alright, I hope you guys can see this is quite a tight space here. Alright, what we got to do now is this gray wire is the old wire. It's a multi-conductor wire. And this blue wire is a new wire. It's a single conductor. I ran this multi-conductor wire with the thought that I might be putting a rotating beacon on the roof of this truck. Decided not to do that. I mounted it on the bed. So, do away with that. That was maybe 10 years ago I did that. So, this single conductor's fine going up there to the cab lights. That's all we need now. So, basically what we have here is a big hole in the kick panel that the previous owner installed speakers through. I removed that speaker. This blue wire is already pulled down through the A-pillar. I pulled that down through with the old gray wire that was chewed up by the mice. Yeah, you can thank the mice for that fun there. And let's finish pulling this blue wire all the way under the dash. So the previous owners also made a hole here for the speaker wires. I'm just going to make use of that. And I've already attached the blue wire to the old gray wire. And I'm just going to try to sneak it through this grommet hole down here. Yep, there we go. It went right through. And just got to kind of help it finish through here. There we go. And anytime you got to replace old wiring with new wiring, just use the old wiring to pull it. Yeah, it saves you a lot of time. I'm using what's already here, you know, the previous owner already cut these holes. So I'm just making use of that. Makes it easy to get to this stuff nonetheless. Okay, so there's our blue wire pulled through that grommet hole down there, which there is no grommet right now. I will install one later. In fact, I'll probably just put a piece of split looming in there, just assuming there's enough room to get it in there. And then I'll just run this up under the dash and run it into the same spot where I have the gray wire tied into. So let's get moving with that. All right, I got a piece of split looming shoved in that hole there to act as a grommet. Should work pretty well. It's a quick and easy way of making your own grommet. Next step is to reinstall this speaker. Okay, speaker's back in. Turned out just fine. Now on to the cab lights. Previously, these lights were wired with just plain old crimp splice caps this time around and do some soldering. Almost forgot the shrink tubing. Again, this is the double wall shrink tubing, so that'll help create a weatherproof connection after the solder joint's done. I got good flow through the whole joint. Now it's heat shrink tubing time. Got this old heat shrink gun. Okay, perfect. Next guy that goes in there will say, boy, that guy really did a good job. Even though that next guy will probably be me. Put that right there. Get the wire tucked up in there. And we will be set to go. We just got to do this 4 more times to finish the rest of the lights. device didn't defeat me this time. That's a big low oil pressure light there. Perfect. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.